Thank you, Leslie, for that amazing introduction. As she was saying, my name is Edwin Betinol. I'm a physiotherapist. I don't know if you guys would consider me like an honorary member or a negligent member of the behavioral programs group, but I think somewhere in the middle there. First of all, I want to congratulate you guys on being here. It's a really big process to kind of come to the conclusion like, all right, I want to move a little bit more. And I think it's fantastic that you guys are able to kind of utilize the resources within this community, because this running group is phenomenal. Super committed, a lot of volunteers here, and this program has been ongoing for now how many years?
32, this is our 32nd.
32nd year. So they're a very committed group, and I hope this first kind of few steps that you guys got here is really cherished. I call it the 4-step phenomenon. It's like the first 4 steps out of the house is like the most difficult, and finding you able to be here, I think it's great. Today I'm talking about cross-training, and I want to expand that concept, and it's more than just a pair of Nikes. Okay, so if you kind of consider where we're going with Western society, we'll take a look at the kind of the changes with like movement, the automation of things, even driving a car. There's like rear cameras, you're not turning very much, you're not reaching out very much. There's actually almost kind of a reduction in movement, right? So we're actually being told that it is convenient to move less. The kind of challenge though is that our movement, am I still on or did I go off?
You lost it.
I lost it, that's not the first time. So the importance is recognizing that movement is a really critical element of normalizing physiological functions. Our bodies are pretty amazing, and in order to operate properly, we need tensions, compressions, full ranges of motions, and these type of things are slowly kind of being deconditioned out of us. I think we need to look at a few concepts of where we're going with that. So what is cross-training? What is cross-training? What are some concepts? What are some concepts of cross-training for you? Weightlifting. Swimming. Skiing. Biking. Awesome. So in essence, what we want to do is improve our, what I like to call movement inventory. And if you kind of take a look at what's going on with our, again, I'm a bit social biased, but we'll take a look at our society and we'll look at our lifespan. And when you watch a child and you watch kids move and when you watch them play, you'll see all kinds of ranges of motions. They're kind of stepping. When you watch dancers, they move differently. They go through different ranges. But when you actually watch what happens in our society, kind of like our progression through our profession goes from being a laborer or a hands-on person to slowly moving into a position of management, right? So through time, our reward is to move less. And that's a kind of a thing that starts happening with our kind of society, and we kind of look at it, and I see that a lot in the patients that I see, which is kind of good for me because people don't really move as much, so they kind of lose their position sense and often will end up getting injuries and that sort of stuff. And more importantly with that, they lose touch. So as we kind of start taking this movement inventory that was way out here, and don't forget you heard that here first. As we take this movement inventory and start condensing it over time, our movements come from all this stuff to this stuff. It becomes a very linear plane. We don't move laterally very much. We don't do rotational components. We don't look up. We don't spin. Those are some of the things we want to think about as we kind of age through life, as we pass through life. When you start talking about cross-training, and especially in the world of runnership, and I think Leslie said something super important, that whole word about pacing, not racing. And it's really challenging sometimes when you come into a group like this and there's different people and you're motivated and okay, yeah, now's the time, we want to get things going. to really kind of let the body take you into that space. Let your mind body take you into that location, and into that drive, into that enthusiasm. And what we're doing here is just like, yeah, I know we love it. This is good. We're going to check you just a little bit. Because that feeling that you have, sometimes we kind of lose identity and we don't know that feeling of push or effort or pain or that sort of stuff. And so what they're doing is actually curbing a bit, because exercise is supposed to be play, right? We also have this kind of weird thing in our society with activity that it's like this, oh gosh, it's like this punitive thing. It's a punishment thing. It's an obligation, right? I am doing this because it is good for me. Good for me. Or, I am doing this because there's no point to it and it's just play. Right? And then there's that certain thing of obligation that we do with ourselves, of saying, oh, are we going to allow ourselves to just enjoy it for what it is? Allow our body to evolve with the movement, allow ourselves to run. So what I want to talk to you about is cross-training, and actually what it's more, how you can flip it and look at it, is how can you use that to be in touch with yourself. So it's more expanding, not the sense of like the athlete, this one element of who you are, but actually you can take that part and expand it so that it's this element of humanity. It's all these elements of what it means to be you. And so that's kind of like the important thing. Some of the things that people will look at and they kind of want to do, adults are really funny. Adults are awesome, actually. I love adults. They make money, make things for us. They cook for me. They're wonderful. I love adults. However, kids are amazing. And one of the things that are amazing about children is they're super explorative. They'll move, they'll roll, they'll kind of play, they'll kind of jump, they'll dive, they'll do all these different things. And they'll experiment, and they'll experiment, and they'll experiment, and they'll experiment, and they'll keep falling, and falling, and falling, and falling, and then they'll stand. And then they'll stick it. See, adults are awesome, because they'll come into their course in the fall, check it out, yeah, I want to learn how to do this. And then they'll fall, and then they'll stay down, and then they'll walk away. Fear of failure. Adults don't like to suck. But sucking is really beautiful because it lets you know you actually don't know how to do it. And it lets you know that your mind isn't going in that space. And it doesn't lets you know that you're not moving in a certain way. And it lets you know that there's this massive expansive space that you can enter and discover. So when we look at those elements of cross-training, we can actually expand on it over the time frame and look at your life versus just the next 10 weeks, versus just the next year, and you can actually take this process and follow this kind of sine wave that sometimes you have a bit more energy, sometimes you have a bit less energy, and you can expand it. And this big wave that you see through life actually follows what we do with Olympic athletes, and it's called periodizing. Have you guys heard of that word before, periodizing? So periodizing means generally there's a time in the kind of the athletic career where you really work on it, work on your strengths, and then there's a time in that period when you're training when you actually work on your weaknesses. Right? So a lot of times we kind of forget is that in order to be really strong, we need a really strong supporting cast. And that supporting cast are the things you don't like to do. Right? And that sometimes it's like, I'm guilty for it. I have a hard time with stretching. I'm working on it. One of the reasons why is the sensation that I have when I stretch always feels like I'm ripping my body apart. Some people talk about it like, oh man, this feels amazing. And for me, it's like, oh, this is like work. So I tend to opt to power stuff. And kind of like horrible stuff and fatiguey stuff and weird things like that. But it's one element that I'm working on. And all of us have preferences of what we want to do. So a couple things that are really interesting about it is you take that fear of failure, you take it and you expand on it, and you look at it from a perspective of neuroplasticity. You guys know that word? Neuroplasticity? Okay, it's more than just Sudoku. All right? So be aware of that. And what we're talking about is when you take this evolution of movement, of movement inventory, of periodizing, this this word that seems so complicated and big that only Olympic athletes are allowed to periodize, because we don't know what that means. It means like, really, honestly, the simplest way to do it is do seasonal activity. Something for the summer, something for the fall, something for the winter, something for the spring. And all of those little things can complement, right? And one of the interesting things about cross-training, I know this, like, you're like, Eddie, can't you just tell us how many reps and sets to do cross-training and then I could be a better runner? But one of the important parts of it is that we can take these elements of movement and recognize movement is also associated with very, very specific experiences. So they could be power, sensation. So kind of strangely, when you're doing your different activities, check in with yourself. How does this activity make you feel? What are you feeling? When you're running, what is that sensation in your body in the first 5 minutes? First 10 minutes? How does it feel at minute 20? How do you feel at the end? Do the scan. How does your breathing feel? How did it evolve during that 20 minutes? How was it? Was that first feeling as you're walking out those doors like dread? Like, oh God, it's gonna be horrible. When's this time over? Or is there anticipation with it? Is it excitement? When you wake up in the morning on Saturday mornings, you're like, I think my calf is tight. I don't know if I can run. Or is it like, okay, this is awesome. This is going to be rewarding. This is going to be great. I know it feels kind of off. I know it's going to be a bit of a struggle. I know it's going to be whatever. But by the end of it, when I come back, I call it type 2 fun. It's great in hindsight. Type 1 fun. Type 1 fun, and we have 3, I kind of grade my fun. Type 1 fun is fun when you're doing it, fun on reflection. Type 2 fun is not so fun when you're doing it, but fun on reflection. Type 3 fun is like not fun when you're doing it, kind of not fun on reflection. But it's still fun, but it's type 3 fun. Okay, so keep that in mind. Always fun, always fun. The only difference with type 2 fun is very specific or very interesting, because a lot of times that reflection part is kind of time-based. So an hour after that, it's like, wow, that was pretty horrible earthquake I just experienced. But maybe 5 years later, you're hanging out in a pub drinking beer like, ah, it was an amazing earthquake I experienced. So keep that in mind. That reflection may be influenced through time. So again, always fun, always fun. So when you look at these movements, when you look at doing your activity, when you're checking in your sensation, when you're looking at cross-training, think about activities that make you feel joyous. Think about activities that make you feel like affect your intellect. Oh, do I need to strategize a bit more? Do I need to like think about how the sequence of events needs to happen? Do I need to think about like the dancing where I have to work on footwork? Do I need to think about somebody else? Do I need to respond to somebody else if I'm the woman? Or also think about, well, what kind of like emotions does it draw? Is it kind of fearful? Is it like nerve-wracking? Now you're going to do an adult dance, and now you have to perform in front of everybody who's really there just to see their kids. So that gives you something too, when you can have something that actually influences your emotional state. Think something like surfers also could be very spiritual, but it also can be really scary when you're looking at some of those waves coming down. Not to say that that's something that you guys really want to experience, that fear stuff, but when you can actually experience a little bit of exhilaration where the outcome is a little uncertain, and then you come out on the other side, that can have a tremendous effect in terms of accomplishment. Setting some targets that are like a little bit difficult, a little bit outside what you've ever expected your body to do, and then you kind of just punch for it. And more importantly, it's not about hitting that goal. So what are all those little steps that you need to do to get there? Maybe you need to do a little bit more dance. Maybe you need to do a little bit more swimming. Maybe you need to do a little bit more lifting. Maybe you just need a little bit more variety. Or maybe you just need more time on your feet. All those little pieces allow you to get to some of those goals. And when you achieve those goals, those are fantastic. So when I talk about cross-training, I want you to think about mostly the elements of achieving and feeling and sensing more things in life, associating it with humanity, tying it with play. There are a lot of things in the community. And running and starting this process of running is phenomenal because it is your first step in cross-training. The big game is life. That's the big game. And these small little elements of it simply prepare you for that. Those unexpected moments where, oh, you might have to run a little bit. That feeling, oh, that's actually not a bad feeling to feel a little bit of this. Oh, that's not a bad feeling to be able to breathe a little bit harder. Why? I felt that before. I've carried my Costco shopping to the car. That's some of the things for you to think about. So really what I want you to think about when you do cross-training, when you think about these activities, think about more importantly from the perspective of play. Think about what are the things that you haven't done that you could do for fun. Think about all those areas that you see other people do and take a step towards that rather than kind of walk away because it's like something foreign. Fear. Afraid to suck. It's a wonderful space to go into. Be able to suck. Because that gives you so much space to expand into it, and taking that humbleness as you go into that place and say, hey, you look like you know what you're doing. Can you teach me? And that opening that you do, that first conversation, that step that you come here and you kind of, all 85 of you are here in the space that's supported by all these people around you. That first step where you say, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me explore? It's your first step into a community. And there's a lot of cool communities in town, and there's a lot of different places that you can explore. And there's a lot of ways to be in your body that don't just have to punish yourself, that just don't have to like take you to a space that is suffering. Though it might be part of it, it's not such a bad thing. But more importantly, it's a place that should be just joyous and allow you to be in your body.